It's January 13th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the warrant to detain President Yoon Suk-yeol. South Korean investigators are yet to execute their warrant to detain Yoon after securing an extended warrant exactly a week ago. Police are ramping up pressure on the Presidential Security Service over allegations that they blocked the first attempt by investigators to detain Yoon over his martial law declaration. And President Yoon's legal team says Yoon does not plan on attending the first formal hearing in his impeachment trial this week, citing personal safety concerns. 2 North Korean soldiers captured by Ukraine say they're willing to stay and live in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy says he can let go of the soldiers in exchange for Ukrainian soldiers held in Russia. It's been a week since the warrant to detain President Yoon was extended, and investigators are yet to make their move as of this morning. For more, we go live to the presidential residence where our Euni is standing by. Euni, the CIO could carry out their second attempt as early as today, but there's no movement detected yet, right?
Yes, good morning, Dami. I'm out here near the presidential residence in Hannam-dong, Yongsan-gu District, Central Seoul. Today, Monday, marks the 7th day since the new arrest warrant was issued for President Yoon Suk-yeol. However, there are no signs yet that the CIO is taking any action to execute the arrest warrant, while protests still continue. It is very cold here, and it even snowed for a while earlier this morning. But both supporters and opponents of the president are out voicing their demands. As of now, I see a larger group of President Yoon's supporters leading rallies, but we'll have to see how the protests unfold throughout the day. Since reissuing the arrest warrant for President Yoon Suk-yeol, the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials has been working with the police to finalize the execution plan over the weekend. The team has been focusing on coordinating resources and equipment for the operation, with expectations that the arrest may happen this week once the preparations are complete. They're also considering filing a lawsuit for damages if any injuries occur during the arrest, and are looking into seeking compensation from the Presidential Security Service for the cost associated with removing obstacles at the Hannam-dong presidential residence.
So, Euni, it looks like the investigators are really taking their time to make their next move. But in the meantime, the police are also building pressure on presidential security officers, aren't they?
Yes, exactly, Dami. The police have applied for an arrest warrant for Kim Sung-hoon, the acting chief of the Presidential Security Service, after he failed to respond to 3 summonses. This comes after the unexpected resignation of former Chief Park Jong-jun last Friday. Additionally, a 3rd summons has been issued for Lee Kwang-woo, the head of the security headquarters, requiring his appearance by 10 a.m., which is now. So we will have to keep an eye on what happens next.
Euni, we have to talk about President Yoon's position. Still firm on not cooperating with the warrant, right?
Yes, Dami, President Yoon's legal team submitted a letter of attorney to the CIO on Sunday requesting a delay in the execution of the arrest warrant until after the conclusion of the impeachment trial at the Constitutional Court. However, the CIO emphasized that the arrest warrant remains valid regardless of the submission of the letters. Also, despite concerns from President Yoon's legal team that the CIO might execute the arrest warrant when President Yoon leaves the presidential residence for the impeachment trial, the CIO has stated that the warrant will be executed regardless of his attendance inside the presidential residence, and they will see when to execute the arrest warrant for now. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Dami.
All right, Euni, thank you for that report. Keep warm. That was our Euni reporting live from Hannam-dong in Yongsan. And President Yoon's impeachment trial begins on Tuesday with the first hearing scheduled for 2 p.m. However, the leader's lawyers announced that he will not be attending this time due to safety concerns. We have our Oh Soo-young on the line at the Constitutional Court. Hello there, Soo-young.
Hi, Dami.
So, Soo-young, President Yoon will not be showing up this time at the first trial hearing. Explain to us what happened and whether this was actually expected.
Sure, Tammy. So on Sunday, Yoon's legal team announced that the president would not be attending his first trial hearing, citing security concerns, as you said. Now, this comes as investigators, of course, look to make another attempt to arrest Yoon in the days to come, after their first attempt earlier this month failed after a 5-hour standoff. His attorney, Yoon Guk-gun, said there are ongoing attempts by the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials to enforce what he described as illegal and invalid arrest warrants through unlawful means. The lawyer stated that issues related to the president's personal safety and security must be resolved, adding that once safety concerns are addressed, he will attend at any time. Now, this doesn't really come as a surprise, given that his team has already indicated that they need more time for preparations, and they've also raised issues with the way that the Constitutional Court is conducting the hearings. Now, if the president skips the first hearing, then it will have to be rescheduled by the justices. But if he misses the second one, then the court is allowed to proceed without him. When former President Park Geun-hye didn't attend her first impeachment trial hearing, the session ended in 9 minutes.
Well, it looks like the trial is off to a rocky start. But on top of that, pre-trial hearings for Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's impeachment also begin on Monday, which is today, which many see as procedurally questionable. Tell us more.
Sure. So the first preparatory hearing for Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will take place this afternoon at 4 p.m. here at the Constitutional Court, and that would be 17 days after the opposition-led parliament pushed through a vote to impeach him shortly after his veto of controversial bills and his refusal to appoint Constitutional Court justices until there was a bipartisan agreement. Now, critics argue that Han, who was serving as acting president at the time, was impeached under voting standards of a simple majority which applies to the prime minister, rather than the two-thirds majority applied to the president, raising issues with the procedure as well as the validity of the impeachment. And the ruling People Power Party in particular would like to see Han reinstated. The veteran bureaucrat and diplomat, he's been seen as a symbol of stability in the country's governance after President Yoon's powers were suspended. The ruling party has also opposed the current acting president, Choi Sang-mok's move to appoint 2 Constitutional Court justices, which of course enables the court to speed up President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial. So that's why there have been calls by the ruling party to quickly hold a trial over the Prime Minister's impeachment first. Now, today, justices will review arguments from the National Assembly, who's impeaching him, and the Prime Minister's side to outline the main arguments for arguing for and against impeachment, as well as receiving applications for witnesses and a list of evidence that they would both like to present throughout the trial.
Alrighty, Soo-young, thank you for that coverage. We appreciate it. A week from today, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will return to the Oval Office, and so will his protectionist trade policies, as is long promised. Is this a complete red flag for South Korea? Let's turn to Professor Oh Jun-seok. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Dami.
Professor, let's start with how Trump's protectionist trade policy became popular and gained support in the U.S. to begin with.
As President-elect, Trump has made indiscriminate tariff, a campaign promise, protectionism, and American first policy have become stronger. What makes protectionism popular? That's because they believe 3 arguments. That trade barrier protect the workers' job, protect the import industry, and safeguard national security. They believe when foreign products face high tariff or are limited by quotas, less competition in the local business, a better chance. They might believe protectionism benefit workers, protecting jobs by making foreign goods more expensive. But as Dami, you mentioned, the first term of the Trump administration tells the truth. It's not exactly. Only workers in a protected industry benefited from the protection. Precisely speaking, Trump's protectionism in the first administration helped the workers in steel and electronic home appliance industry at the sacrifice of the rest of the customers. Now, how could it be convincing again? Protectionism is like suggesting an offer to the village people of living together in a big cave. Think for a month. When you feel safe and free, lock yourself in a dark cave. It might be when village people believe there will be a thunder or heavy rain, and the belief of full of tension, threat, or uncertainty outside draw people into the cave as a safe harbor. Locking cave cannot be a long-term policy. They could hide but not grow nor learn from others. For the time being, protectionism can get shaken and political years, way to go. But however, the economist tells the warning. The wage increases resulting from high tariff, anti-immigrant policies could stimulate the price in the United States. This may be very, very difficult to reconcile with his promise of a low interest rate. President Trump's America First and extreme protectionist policy will become worse and worse on the overall global economy.
Well, what we do know for sure is that Trump will likely keep China in check, especially when it comes to chips and advanced technology, meaning the target will be China. But what we should be concerned about here is that South Korea and South Korea firms may be victims of the U.S.-China trade war that we saw 4 years ago, right?
Right. When the second Donald Trump administration comes into office, one of the most important strategies it must lay out is a comprehensive high-tech policy, including unparalleled cooperation with capable allies amid intensified U.S.-China competition. This type of competition is a supply chain competition, so it is very important for Korea to be included in the supply chain. When the trade tension between two countries becomes worse, China is likely to take a trade deflection policy, which means round-tripping trades to avoid the rule of origin. Instead of direct trade from China to United States, Chinese product will make an export to Korea first, Canada, or Mexico, and making a transit from Korea, Canada, and Mexico to the United States. This is why Chinese companies had made foreign direct investment into Korea, Canada, and Mexico. Korea lies at present on the fault line of the U.S.-China tension. In the head-to-head, at this kind of head-to-head conflicts, Korea became a sitting duck in these geopolitical situations. And this is also the reason the second Trump administration raised the issue of renegotiation of USMCA between Mexico and Canada. Each passport made in Korea, made in Canada might not be allowed anymore. Korea has to cope with the growing dilemma with dependence on the Chinese market, being unable or unwilling to decoupling from China due to its immense economic potential. Even Canada and Mexico, as well as Korea, seek to strengthen their security and defense ties with the United States. In the sense of defragmentation risk management, the private sector really matters a lot in making more resilient and secure supply chain to sustain a robust technology alliance. Anyway, as we mentioned, Korea is likely to fall victim to the escalating trade disputes among the United States, China, and European Union as well.
Well, Professor Oh, South Korean auto and steel sectors are on high alert that they may become the hardest hit by the Trump's protectionism yet again. Now, how can these troubled sectors really survive Trump 2.0?
In the middle of reforming supply chain in chip industry, it is expected that the U.S. push more pressure on China. As a result, Korea semiconductor industry might find unexpected advantage. And the United States may use alliance in its effort to build naval vessel amid the expectation of seeking cooperation with Korea's shipbuilding industry. Trump made it clear amid call for America to bolster its shipbuilding capacity. China is known to have over 230 times the shipbuilding capacity of the United States. Trump said the U.S. seek to work with Korea in shipbuilding industry, particularly in naval shipbuilding export, repair, and maintenance. And Trump's proposal for a 10% universal baseline tariff on all import poses risk for Korean automobile export. Tariff hikes could undercut auto export. However, experts say a potential increase in U.S. oil and gas production could help to stabilize global energy prices, offering relief in some areas.
Well, Professor, before I let you go, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, two big giants here in South Korea, are among the big beneficiaries under the CHIPS Act. The question is, will Trump uphold the CHIPS Act, something that was signed under the Biden administration?
Yeah, the CHIPS Act provided incentives for chip makers to settle manufacturing in the U.S., which became a point of contention. Trump criticized the bill and its price tag. The Korea EV battery industry, led by LG Energy Solution, SK On, and Samsung SDI, received over 2.65 trillion won as a subsidy from the first quarter of last year to the third quarter of this year under the IRA. Trump is probably not going to roll it back. Korean chip makers and electric vehicle battery manufacturers are particularly on edge, as these companies made substantial investment in the United States in response to Washington's subsidy program. For example, Samsung Electronics was promised to subsidies worth $6.4 billion when a semiconductor plant in Taylor, Texas, starts to operate in 2026. SK Hynix, which unveils plan in April to build an artificial intelligence semiconductor plant in Indiana, is expected to receive $450 billion in federal subsidy. Since these subsidies fall under the CHIPS Act, there is a hope that it will likely remain on contact.
All righty, Professor, thank you so much for your time and your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Now, in other news, the top envoys of South Korea and Japan will meet here in Seoul on Monday to discuss ways to develop bilateral relations this year, marking the 60th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic ties. South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol and his Japanese counterpart Takeshi Iwaya will meet at the Foreign Ministry building in the afternoon, where they'll also discuss ways to improve trilateral cooperation with the U.S. with the incoming Trump administration. The two foreign ministers are also expected to review projects being promoted for the 60th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations, while also exchanging opinions on historical issues, such as the controversial Sadomai Memorial held last year. Now, Iwaya will be in Seoul for 2 days. He will also meet with acting President Choi Sang-mok. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy shared his thoughts on exchanging recently captured North Korean soldiers with Ukrainian troops being held in Russia. And the interrogations of the North Korean soldiers are also posted online by Zelenskyy. Our Park Kwon-woo has more.
A proposal to swap captured North Korean and Ukrainian troops, written in English, Ukrainian, and also Korean. The offer posted online Sunday by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says Ukraine is ready to hand over Kim Jong-un soldiers to him in exchange for Ukrainian soldiers.
If Kim Jong-un remembers these citizens at all and can arrange an exchange for our soldiers held in Russia, we can transfer these soldiers.
Zelenskyy also said there's no doubt that Russia is dependent on military assistance from North Korea, adding that it's only a matter of time before more North Korean soldiers are captured. 2 injured North Korean soldiers, both in their 20s, were caught in the Kursk region by Ukraine last week and then transported to Kyiv for medical care. One of the soldiers was found with a Russian military ID under a different name and registered in the Tuva Republic. The Security Service of Ukraine has been communicating with them with the help of South Korea's National Intelligence Service, as they only speak Korean. Footage of the interrogations was also uploaded to social media by Zelenskyy over the weekend.
누구랑 싸운다고 했어?
훈련을 실전처럼 해본다고 했어요.
다시 북한으로 돌아가고 싶어?
우크라이나 사람은 맞죠, 여기서 살고 싶어요.
Zelenskyy also said if the North Korean soldiers do not wish to return to the north, there are other options for them to stay and spread the truth of the war in Korean. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
While firefighters continue to take on the massive wildfires that have ravaged LA County, strong winds in the forecast in the area are expected to worsen the situation further. Authorities say they're deploying even more firefighters to the affected areas. Lee Seung-jae reports.
With firefighters still struggling to extinguish the massive wildfires that continue to spread throughout Los Angeles County, strong winds are forecast to hit the affected region, further worsening the already tense situation. Fire authorities are deploying over 1,000 fire trucks and over 10,000 firefighters before the strong winds arrive.
Now today, strong north to northeast winds gusts are up to 50 miles per hour with low humidity will be observed. A red flag warning is in effect and will remain until 6 p.m. Wednesday evening. Strong Santa Ana winds are also expected to last through Wednesday, with the strongest winds occurring on Tuesday. With the next wave of wind events, I want to be very, very clear here. It's very important that the community understands that these wind events are coming into Los Angeles. I want to reassure you that Mayor Bass, Chief McDonald, and I are united and focused on exactly what we need to do to prepare the city with these next strong winds that are coming.
With local firefighters struggling to extinguish the fast-moving fires, firefighters from 9 other states have joined efforts to control the fires. Firefighters from Mexico have also been deployed to help. The joint efforts are all the more crucial due to how fast the fires are moving. So far in the 4 active wildfires in Los Angeles County, 160 square kilometers have been burned, an area larger than San Francisco. As of Sunday afternoon local time, only 11% of the fire in Pacific Palisades had been extinguished, while 27% had been extinguished in Eaton. The economic losses from the wildfires are estimated to be between $135 billion to $150 billion US so far. However, with many of the wildfires yet to be extinguished, that figure is expected to rise even further. Unfortunately, with residents evacuating, incidents of looting and homes being broken into are on the rise. At least 16 people have been confirmed dead and 16 others are reportedly missing. More than 12,000 buildings have so far been destroyed by the fires. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has announced plans for an upcoming meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin after Trump is sworn in on January 20th. The Kremlin has responded positively, with spokesperson Dmitry Peskov noting Putin's openness to dialogue. The exact timeline for talks between the two leaders has not yet been offered. However, it's expected to address the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Trump's potential return to the White House has sparked optimism for a diplomatic resolution to end Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, which began in February 2022. During his election campaign, Trump repeatedly claimed he could end the war within 24 hours. However, he and his advisors have more recently suggested that peace might be achievable within months of his inauguration. Despite the hope, there are concerns in queue that a swift peace deal could come at a significant cost for Ukraine. Over in Africa, the Sudanese armed forces announced on January 11th that it had recaptured the strategic city of Wad Madani from the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces. This marks a significant victory in the ongoing civil war in Sudan. Wad Madani, the capital of Gezira State, had been under RSF control since December 2023. The recapture of Wad Madani is expected to have major implications for the ongoing conflict, potentially shifting the balance of power in favor of the SAF. Known as an agricultural hub, the central city had previously served as a refuge for displaced families and a base for humanitarian operations. The conflict in Sudan, which began in April 2023, has resulted in over 28,000 deaths, the displacement of more than 12 million people, and half the population facing hunger, creating one of the world's largest humanitarian crises. Over in Romania, tens of thousands of people took to the streets of Bucharest on Sunday to protest the Constitutional Court's unprecedented cancellation of the presidential election on December 6th. The court's decision cited allegations of electoral violations and potential Russian interference that favored right-wing candidate Călin Gheorghescu, a critic of NATO who had unexpectedly led the first round of voting. In response to the court's ruling, the government has rescheduled the election dates for May 4th and a potential runoff on May 18th. However, uncertainty remains over whether Gheorghescu will be permitted to run again. In Russia's Yakutia region, dozens of marathon runners braved freezing temperatures of around -50 degrees Celsius. Also known as the Cold Pole, it's one of the coldest regions in the world, and such weather is typical for the winter season, where the lowest temperature on record was -67.7 degrees Celsius in 1933. While a marathon 42.2 kilometers long is challenging even in ideal weather, running in such cold conditions only adds to the difficulty. Runners sipped hot beverages for hydration and were seen with their hair and eyelashes covered in ice.
After bone-chilling temperatures we had last week, we'll see the cold snap subsiding for the earlier part of this week. The readings will gradually go down towards the end of the week, but it should not be as bad as last week. Meanwhile, central parts of Korea could see snow flurries today and into tomorrow. Gangwon-do province could see up to 5 centimeters of snowfall. But the dust level is high in the capital area in Gyeongsang-do provinces this morning. In Sejong and Chungcheong-pukdo province, we'll see bad dust levels throughout the day today. Now, cold wave alerts remain in place for parts of central regions and Gyeongsang-pukdo today. Highs will be 2 to 3 degrees Celsius higher than Sunday, topping out at 6 degrees here in the capital, Daegu, Gyeongju at 7 degrees. Now, Jeju and Jeollado provinces will see a mix of rain and snow in the middle of this week, with a dry advisory still in place for the East Coast. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for our morning edition of Arirang News. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful start to the week.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. Arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. Or, shibor. 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Galbijjim. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait, did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.
The single letter that has captivated the world. K. We answered that question with a K-culture journalist on The Culture Wave. What's the next K on your radar? Get ready to ride the wave of K-Culture's latest trends.
고무장갑 다 똑같다고? 아니, 러버랩은 달라. 내 손인 듯 하루 종일 편하게. 슬림한 두께로 낀 듯 안 낀 듯 가볍게. 튼튼하니까 걱정 없이. 두 가지 길이로 다양하게 쓰는 러버랩으로 만드는 편리한 일상. 껴보면 달라. 러버랩 고무장갑. 러버랩.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We're News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Monday, January 13th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yoo-jin, and you're watching News Generation. Joining us today is Cheska Dainho.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. And Ki Kim.
Good morning.
Morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to move on to our main discussion of the day. It's Monday, time to focus on some of the most pressing issues concerning our generation. Now, more than 2 weeks have passed since the Jeju Air Flight 2216 crash, which resulted in the deaths of 179 people. This devastating crash has left not only South Korea, but the entire world in shock. So starting off, how have people in South Korea been mourning and sharing in the pain and grief caused by this tragic accident?
I think I'm one of the many South Koreans here that really feel personal when it comes to the Muwon Airport. Definitely taking a big toll on a lot of us here in South Korea. A lot of families are still grieving. In addition to Muwon Airport, there are memorial altar being set up across the country, including Seoul, Gwangju, and Gangwon-do, and visitors have continued to pay tribute to these memorial altars. Now, a lot of donations also have been happening, and celebrities also have taken part, such as BTS in J-Hop, who donated about 100 million won for the bereaved families, and many other celebrities actually donating to pay tribute. Now, there's a lot of concerts and festivals that have been planned at the end of the year that have been cancelled or postponed as a sign of mourning during this period as well.
Right. So as Cheska mentioned, we observed and saw a lot of nationwide mourning events taking place, especially during the national period of mourning, which we will mention later. But I really want to focus on what kind of support has been focused on and have been offered to the bereaved family members.
Sure. For the bereaved families, they had to stay at the airport for about a week or longer, and so many people flocked into the Muan International Airport. Many volunteers tried to help them out, bereaved families and others with food and daily necessities. Experts like doctors, pharmacists, and lawyers all reached out to practice their expertise to help them. And according to Jeollanam province, about 5,000 volunteers gathered at the airport, and about 7,000 daily necessity items, including food, blankets, hot packs that warm you up, and more, were provided at the site. As you can see from the screen, some people pre-purchased coffee from the cafes around the airports, and convenience stores let people use microwaves, water heaters, and eating stalls at their convenience. A famous figure from the colonial class war showed up at the scene as well. Mr. An Yu-sung came down 3 times providing kimbap, seed rice roll with assorted vegetables, gomtang or beef bone broth soup, and even abalone potteries for about 500 people for bereaved families, police, and firefighters there.
Right, so a lot of people lended out a helping hand, especially to those who are directly affected by this tragic accident. Now, this tragedy has had a particularly profound impact on our generation because, as many of our viewers may know, we've grown up witnessing and experiencing several large-scale incidents where hundreds of lives were lost. And this seems to have led young people to reflect on and find meaningful ways to honor and commemorate the victims. So could you please tell us more on how our generation is approaching this?
Yujin, as you said, so we have actually experienced a lot of very unfortunate tragedies, and as much as it pains me to bring up the past tragedies, our generation went through the Seolho, the Seoul ferry incident in 2014, to Itaewon stampede just 2 years ago. And because these are such emotional and sensitive issues, there have been some concerns that have been raised over how we can actually be more proper and respectful during these times. So if you take a look at the screen, here's a recommended guideline that was published by the Seoul Office of Education. Now, in times of crisis, it is highly recommended that we do not share personal information of the victims or spread false or unverified information or accusations targeted towards certain people. And these guidelines are to protect both others and ourselves, because if we expose ourselves to too much of these emotional footage or falsely broadcasted information, it can really turn our emotion to target the wrong kind of people. Now, during the Itaewon stampede, I don't know if you remember, but there were a lot of unfiltered video footages spread across the media.
Immediately after the accident happened.
Exactly, and there were a lot of information that were created for the sole purpose of clickbaits with very sensitive titles, so that just to get views. And I think this is a very misleading behavior. So I think we really should be careful, especially in times where information or emotions can be very sensitive and heightened.
And when it comes to footage, I kind of remember when this airplane crash first happened, there were actually videos that recorded the direct crash, and then it was even broadcasted in a couple of local broadcasters, but then a lot of viewers actually commented that this is not right, which ended off to these broadcasters blurring this footage. So I think that this is definitely proof that we're seeing some change, people understanding how to properly mourn or grieve those who were impacted by the accident.
And everybody receives information differently. So for some people, yes, unfiltered footage may give them more impact, but for some it might give them, it might come up past traumas or even cause traumas that they didn't want. So I think we really have to find the right balance when it comes to spreading these kind of information.
Definitely. Anything else you'd like to add, Ki?
Well, Itaewon incident, as a matter of fact, was a big issue for MZ's generation. I also personally went there to cherish the lost ones at the site back then. I'm sure Muan is the same way, and all the altars provided were the same. It was a very weird feeling, just saddening. The atmosphere there was so deep. Itaewon used to be the hottest place. And airport, if you recall from the movie Love Actually, is the place of love. In the movie, Hugh Grant says, with the airport in the background, love is actually all around, but the air was so heavy. It was even more shocking for MZers, as many young people have died and lost their lives in the Itaewon incident. You can see some small spaces or wall paintings there to remember those who lost their lives. And most importantly, many are now very much alerted about the safety issue. And I've been emceeing a lot of different events lately, and since then, the protocols have changed completely when I look at the script or any plan for any sort of event. Safety and evacuation plan in case of any emergency is now a must.
Right. I think we are witnessing something similar after this Jeju airplane crash because there are more growing calls over airline, airplane, and airport safety. Now, going back to the Jeju airplane crash, once again, the Korean government declared a national period of mourning from December 29th, which is the day of the crash, to January 4th. And during this time, we saw considerable debate over what constitutes a proper and respectful way to mourn, as well as how far the mourning should extend. So what were the main points of this debate? And I also want to ask your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think this is a really important discussion because since we've, as you mentioned, since we had several of these national tragedies and crises, I think people have become even more sensitive when it comes to what is the proper scope or how should we actually pay tribute. So I actually saw and read this on social media, and there's a lot of debate going on about, you know, how much or how far should you go during these kind of mourning period. For instance, I think there was one of the companies actually set off a firework event, and I think the government suspended the company for 6 months for setting off an event during this time. And celebrities have even received criticism and backlash for posting like their festive and celebrative lifestyles during this mourning period. Now, there's a divided opinion, and some people say during this mourning period, we really should, you know, pause and maybe take a break from enjoying our festive activities to pay respect. There's another opinion, and these people argue that it cannot be forced on other people because they have livelihoods to continue. And more importantly, I think one of the interesting arguments that I heard is that you cannot peer pressure other people into being swept by this movement of sadness. That in and of itself is not even a proper mourning. So there's a lot of different opinions about how we should or what we should do in this period,
Right, and I think that the debate got huge because the time when this accident happened was the year-end, which is when mostly year-end festivities and New Year festivities take place.
A lot of gatherings, a lot of award ceremonies, precisely so,
Right. And what do you, anything you'd like to say more, Ki?
Yeah, because of the year-end, a lot of year-end party were canceled. Even the New Year's event were all canceled to just pay respect to those who lost their lives. And as Jessica mentioned, some have a very careful approach, whereas some say it's too much. Just don't force me to be sad. And I understand why we need to mourn. It's a national disaster, and in a history we've never seen such a big airplane crash in Korea. And honestly, some people have to move on. People have to make their livings. For example, people who are in the restaurant business, they lost so many customers, like you guys said, because it was year-end and many people should have been festive, but they just simply didn't gather. They didn't drink, and even in the entertainment business, and here I'm not talking about those who are in front of the camera, I'm talking about the cameraman, audio, people all, you know, create this sort of show behind the camera, and they have to survive. And for them, this time around could have been their, you know, cash coming months, because their income fluctuates throughout the year. And only my concern is you don't have to be forced to be sad, and, you know, feel free to express your feelings, but feel very sorry for those who disgrace or even insult those who have lost their lives or who have lost their beloved ones. So let's just be human here.
Right, so we kind of get what both sides are arguing and their opinions. Now, to get deeper insight on this topic and debate, we'll be joined by an expert after this break. Stay tuned.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
So joining us this morning is Christy Chun, counselor at the Torch Trinity Counseling Center in Seoul. Welcome back to the show.
Hello, good to see you guys.
Good to see you again. So we first want to ask you, Christy, South Korea, as we mentioned earlier, observed a national period of mourning after the plane crash. And we want to ask you why you think such a period is necessary.
Yes, providing a designated time and place to express sorrow will help our nation and citizens to process and go through grief. Because this crash accident was so tragic, it was a huge shock and left great sadness to the whole nation. In times of these, people need time and space to mourn. Some may mourn quietly on a personal level. That should be respected. But there are people who want to outwardly express their respect and condolences publicly to the bereaved. Many people have been visiting joint memorial altars to express sorrow, and this helps people to express their sadness, and it would also be a comfort to the bereaved families. If people were to just carry on with their normal daily lives as if nothing happened, this would not help one get through grief. This national mourning period allows people to honor the souls of the victims and comfort the brokenhearted.
Christy, as you mentioned, people have different ways of paying tribute, but what are some meaningful and effective ways we can do to commemorate the victims and support their grieving families, in your opinion?
Yes, when such tragic incident occurs, we tend to freeze and think that we can't do much. But actually, there are ways for us to remember and support the bereaved families. First, it would be providing emotional support. More than 100,000 of citizens have visited the memorial altars to show respect and mourn for the victims. Some organizations, such as Neighboring Kakao, opened an online memorial space to commemorate. And on a personal level, I think expressing our sadness would help. Sharing the message of "we are sad with you," "you are not alone in this," "I'm here to mourn with you." These kind of messages could at least be a slight comfort to the bereaved families. It is also important for the bereaved families to feel like they are heard. The government should do their best to provide medical and relief aid, offer counseling services, and really accept the bereaved families' request. We can also support financially, as it was mentioned earlier. And lastly, even if the mourning period ends as time would go by, we shouldn't forget and really try to commemorate the victims. Just like how our nation remembers the Sewol ferry incident of 2014 and the Itaewon incident of 2022. Let's try to remember the lost ones and mourn together with those who have been heavily affected.
Okay, Councillor Yoon, so tragic incidents like this don't just affect those directly involved. You know, people get fatigued about the media coverage, or some are even, get saddened by this event for a long time. And general public can also experience trauma after seeing such events being covered by media. So what are some of the ways to overcome this kind of trauma?
One way to overcome indirect trauma is being intentional with media usage. Repetitive exposure to tragic events through media can increase certain symptoms. Therefore, reading the news articles or watching any content related to tragic events should be minimized. And as mentioned earlier, being careful about making any comments or accusations related to the events would be helpful. Also, it would help to normalize your symptoms. One may experience various traumatic symptoms such as difficulty managing emotion, feeling numb, experiencing physical pain or discomfort in your body, having intrusive thoughts, or negative view towards the world. All of these are some of the symptoms, but if you're experiencing these, normalize them by telling yourself, these are normal experiences that I can be experiencing. And it will be good to know that these symptoms can last up until 4 weeks. If they do not subside, then seek for professional help such as counseling. And if you're not able to receive such counseling services, it would help to talk to someone whom you feel safe and secure with. Even just talking about how you feel and validating your emotions will surely help.
All right, some very helpful advice. That was Christy Chun, counselor at the Torch Trinity Counseling Center. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we've heard from Councillor Chun, but we also asked our viewers what they think is the most appropriate way to extend condolences and support to those affected by disasters or accidents. And here's what 3 of them shared. Our first comment for this Monday is by Roddy Russell Jr. 93. I'm from New York City. I remember experiencing 9/11 when I was in 3rd grade. People laid many different flowers at the memorials around the city. Robert Dawson 890 says a prayer and a visit to a memorial site to lay a white flower. Our final comment, Park Daeon 85. Personally, I avoid saying I understand your pain for the reason that we cannot fully understand how people feel, and I try to accompany them in whatever they allow me. So we've listened to our viewers on the various ways they extend their condolences to those affected by tragedies or accidents. Now, ending off our episode today, while we hope to never experience such tragedies again, we know the unexpected can happen. If and when it does, what kind of mindset or approach do you think we should adopt to help our society recover and heal and move forward from the scars of these incidents?
That is such a great question, and it really wasn't easy to answer this one because you never know it can happen to you.
Right.
You're never the exception. And actually, when you were reading the comments, the last one kind of touched me. It's really hard to say, I understand your pain.
Right, we cannot 100% understand what they're going through.
Exactly, because we're not in the same shoes, unfortunately, as they are. So when I thought about this question, I thought, how would I want other people to feel if I were one of the victims? And the thought that I came up with, I would want people to celebrate their lives and really appreciate what they have right now, because life is so precious and fleeting. And, you know, celebrate it with gratitude. And if anything, I would not want them to be swept away by too much grief or too much mourning, and that they remember and not forget, but also not forget what is really important. Yeah.
Right, so putting yourself in their shoes, not forgetting, not forcing.
Exactly.
What about you, Ki?
Now, one of the good suggestions that actually was showing up on our viewers' comment was the visiting the site or the altar. Well, not actually site, but the visiting the memorial altar. I don't know if you recall, we had this movement called 정이나 미안해. That's like, I'm sorry, 정이. It was a little girl who's been abused in a child care center.
Right.
And as a father who was raising kid, you know, I felt depressed to see all those news, to see those footage. But then it made me feel better when I actually went to the memorial altar and then lay down the flower, and hopefully you are well up there. But it makes you at least feel better. So if you are traumatized with all these news, actually moving and going to an altar, actually it's going to help you. But whatever we do, those who are gone cannot return, and those who lost their loved ones may grieve forever. And what we need now is not a prejudice or any rash decision. The Ministry of Land Infrastructure and Transport has actually said in a press briefing that any airplane crash can take, the investigation can take up to 3 years at longest. So we just need a precise investigation into the case, no matter how long it takes. Like I said before, if there's one thing we learned from the previous incident, just like Itaewon incident, is the awareness in safety.
Yes.
So find out the exact cause of the accident, punish those who are responsible for it, to show the world this is what happens when you deal with a plaintiff, dealing with many people's lives, and most importantly, take precautions to prevent any accidents from happening.
Right, and if I can add on, I just want to say it's okay not to be okay, because this was such a big and tragic accident and incident. So if you need help, don't hesitate and actively seek for help. And last but not least, our hearts once again go out to all those who were affected by the crash. Our hearts are with you.
Yes.
And that's all from us today, but NewsGen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Cheska Dainho.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ki Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.